A few years ago, the man considered the king of Vietnamese silk was caught up in a nationwide scandal. His products considered handmade and made in Vietnam were discovered to be imported from China. They are cut off all Chinese origin labels, sticked with Vietnamese labels and sold in luxury stores in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City as well as 5-star hotels in many big cities. The selling price of the product is usually about 10 times higher than the import price. Most buyers are foreigners who come to Vietnam on short business trips or tourists who buy them as gifts for their relatives. Vietnamese people who buy them to give to foreign partners as a unique product with Vietnamese soul are also his victims. And according to his confession, this fraud lasted for 30 years before being discovered. Hello viewers of Vietnam Facts and Figures channel. Today we would like to introduce to you the story of the king of Vietnamese silk, how he scammed Vietnamese people and foreigners who came to Vietnam to travel. The once idol of a successful businessman, a messenger who introduced foreigners to a quintessential Vietnamese product, disappeared overnight due to the negligence of a female worker. Portrait of a silk merchant tycoon. The author of this 30-year scam is Hong Kai, born in 1964 in Hanoi. His family owns an embroidery shop on Hang Gai Street, Hanoi. At first, he studied music at the Hanoi Conservatory of Music, and when he was 25 years old, he dropped out. Hang Gai Street is an ancient street in Hanoi, located close to Hon Kim Lake, and the people in this street live mainly by selling souvenirs to foreign tourists. The selling price is often more expensive than selling to Vietnamese people. Hong Kai started his business path by buying silk scarves, handwoven in Van Phuc Silk Village about 10 kilometers from Hanoi. He buys at a very cheap price and sells it to foreigners at a price dozens of times higher because visitors to Vietnam often buy either roasted coffee beans in packages or silk scarves. They don't have many options. From a small family store on Hang Gai Street, Hanoi, Kai has brought his products to most luxury hotels from the south to the north and in famous tourist areas. Kai rented shops on Dong Hoi Street, the most expensive street in Ho Chi Minh City, likened to Fifth Avenue in New York or Orchard Street in Singapore. Famous hotels such as JW Marriott Phu Quoc or Intercontinental Peninsula Da Nang all have Kai's products. In about 10 years, Kai became rich by selling silk scarves at a price 10 times more expensive to foreign tourists. With the money he earned in 2000, Kai began to move into real estate. The silk scarf tycoon built a series of restaurants and hotels in Phu Mai Hung area and began to try his hand at restaurants, hotels and office rentals. What happened? On October 17, 2017, a customer in Hanoi bought 60 silk scarves at Mr. Kai's store on Hang Gai Street, Hanoi to give to his company's customers. They accidentally discovered a scarf labeled both made in China and made in Vietnam. The customer posted the entire incident on his personal Facebook and also took the purchased goods for inspection to check the origin of the materials used to produce the scarves. Hong Kai admitted in the press that he had imported and sold Chinese scarves since 1990. Later, people found out that this was because a female worker of Kai's company neglected to cut off the brand while working. The incident was reported to Vietnamese agencies and transferred to the police. It is also not seen that Mr. Kai was fined or punished in any way. The results of the appraisal of Mr. Kai's company's scarf, although it was announced that the scarf's composition was 100% silk, turned out to be incorrect. The tycoon's secret. The rich people in the world all have a special talent and a secret that no one else can learn. Kai of course also has a secret, that's for sure, because while the average income of Vietnamese people is only about $285, he is the owner of the most beautiful castle in Ho Chi Minh City which costs $15 million, many luxury restaurants, buildings, and an expensive car collection. Because his house is on Hang Gai Street, Hanoi, and shop owners sells mainly tourist items to foreigners, he discovered that some tourists tend to buy Vietnamese-made silk scarves as gifts for relatives. If he only bought silk scarves in Van Phuc village, about 10 kilometers far from his home, and resold them at a 20 to 30% higher price like other traders, no one would know who he was, and he would probably have to work hard like many others to have enough food to eat and clothes to wear. He sells silk scarves to foreigners because there are no Vietnamese people who buy them. In fact, there are some but very few that can only be counted on the fingers. Most of them bought it as gifts to foreign business partners. Vietnamese people do not give each other silk scarves. And he deposited it into 5-star hotels to sell to foreigners. These people don't bargain like we bargain when buying vegetables at the street market. Kai did nothing wrong when he bought a scarf for $2.50 and sold it for $25. The weakest go to the wall. If you keep the labels intact, where the goods are produced, then resell 10 times higher, you are a talented businessman. But instead, you cut off all the labels, stick the new one disguised as "Made in Vietnam," and advertise the product as a national specialty, with a Vietnamese soul, and he just sends to customers a slice of Vietnamese ingenuity. He is truly a master. Imagine how wealthy Japanese tourists would react if they bought a bottle of Chanel 5 perfume for a few $100s in Paris and happened to know that it was made in Guangzhou, China, or a respected American professor bought a Rolex watch in a luxury store in New York. A beautiful day, he has by chance discovered that it was made in Cambodia by a deep fake workshop and forced labor. To finish. The hero on the cover of Forbes Vietnam, a character who regularly appears in TV interviews, a member of Shark Tank Vietnam, who always inspires young people with profound moral lessons that have transformed Lost. He also promptly sold his 15 million castle and other real estate. It is unknown where he went, what he did, and what happened after the shocking scam in Vietnam that lasted 30 years. We wish him luck and, as the Vietnamese say, a safe journey.